Hello, 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 Algebra. So we're going to have a review for the exam, which is going to be in 2 days. Now, exam is on my MATLAB, and I am hoping that for the last 2 weeks you have been following what we were doing online. And you know that exam is going to be online, and we have to keep this form of instruction and everything until we are done with the course. So I am hoping that you will be typing in chat, because the chat is the only way for us to communicate. Oops. This is supposed to say 4-2. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have many of you watching live, but I hope that those of you that are watching the class live, that you have questions for me. And if you don't, I'll just go through random problems, and then we are going to see what else we can do. So on Thursday and Friday there is going to be an exam, which will be exactly an hour long from the moment you start. So if there are any accommodations, it will be adjusted, obviously. So from the moment you click start the test, the counter will start counting time, and you are supposed to solve the problems. If you finish before 1 hour, you just hit submit, and if you don't, the test will close automatically in 1 hour time. So it's going to be noon to noon. We talked about it. 1 hour and chapters 3 and 4. So only 7 sections on this exam. And you use the study plan in my MATLAB to practice. I'm having issues with I had issues for the last 3 days with my MATLAB. It came back this morning. I was able to post a whole bunch of homework for a lot of classes, and I will be managing your class afterwards. The quizzes are going, and hopefully you are able to deal with the stuff. All right, So I already had the review for my other class, so I'm just going to skip. Oh no, we're not gonna skip over this. So these are the topics which are included on the exam. So chapters 3 and 4, ability to graph the points and figure out which quadrants, know all the names and terminology in terms of, the origin, axis, point, ordered pair, all of the words which is called terminology, right? All of the terminology we learned regarding chapters 3 and 4, which includes quadrants, right? So quadrants 1 through 4. Compute couple of points, so you're able to test if the points are on the graph or not, and able to draw the line from those points. Then x and y intercepts, right? Those are important as well, and you compute them in this chart, which you have to memorize. Vertical and horizontal lines, I'll just put with equations, right? Because those are also important. Graphing two types of two forms, right? You have a standard form, which is when you compute x and y intercepts, and then you have y equal mx plus b, which is called slope intercept form, where you use counting, right? You graph b first on y-axis, and then you count m as rise over run. Write the equation of the line. It has three flavors. So we have what do we have? We have slope m and y-intercept slope m and one of the points and 2 points. So to find equation of the to find equation of the line. Okay, so the last point is to compute the 2 point more to compute the slope and interpret the slope. So compute and interpret the slope. And we use the formula. Make sure you know what is the positive and negative slope, what the line would look like. And then we have the rate of change to interpret the slope, right? So that's the interpretation of the slope, rate of change for the word problems. When they say that something is changing at the rate, that's written as a fraction, and the fractions are read as the slopes, right? So 15 miles per gallon means drive 15 miles for 1 gallon of gas. $16 per hour means earn $16 every hour, right? So earn $16 every hour. That's a slope. That's a slope of the linear line, and you can use it to figure out amount of money. At one point in time, I worked as a busboy. That was my second job when I moved in. My job was paid by hour, plus the portion of tips earned by all of the servers, right? So you can actually write mathematical equation to figure that out. So you can have money made per hour, and that will be the slope, plus, and then the fix. I believe it was like 55 per day for bussers, and 25 for waiters, I think was. So I think it was, so I was making 55 per day house pay, plus 55 per day, plus, and then whatever I was making an hour, say, I don't know, as a busser, let's say $5 for every hour. Well, here's your mx plus b, right? If you write this y equal 5x plus 55, you can figure out how much money can you make per day. If you are making $5 per hour in terms of tips, plus once a day, $55 once a day. So that's a fixed 55 every day, and then 5 per hour. So, it's a linear equation. Oh, I see. I did not change the title in... Okay, let me quickly... I don't know if I can. Maybe I can. Can I? I don't know if I can. I'll try to change the title. Actually, you know what? I can change the title once the review is done. I'll change the title. I see in chat that I did not change the title. So this lecture is going under pre-calculus 1, and it's actually elementary algebra. So I will change it after. All right. So this is, let me just say, this is algebra. Oops, where's my H? There we go. This is algebra. All right. Let's deal with chapter 4. Only few concepts here. Be able to graph these two so you can right? Intersect them and get the solution by intersection. Three types of solution. One solution when they intersect at the xy point. No solution when the lines are parallel, and infinitely many solutions when the lines graph one on top of the other. So that's what I have for now. Next one is solving systems, and this is the last one, right? Solving systems by substitution when we do the when we plug one equation into another, and we can still have the same three possibilities: one solution, no solution, and infinitely many solutions. They just manifest differently because this time we're not graphing, we are this time we're not graphing, we are doing the whatever substitution. There we go. All right, so if you have any particular questions, type them in chat. If not, I'm just going to go through whatever problems. Now, guys, there are a lot of problems that I already did with the other section, so I will be repeating a whole bunch of this stuff, and I will post the file for everyone to see. All right, so what are some of the concepts and ideas we need to know? One is ability to compute the point, right? So compute the point at x equals 3. Come on, x equals 3 in y equals 2x plus 6. So they just plug in, right? So you have 2 times 3 plus 6 equals 6 plus 6 equals 12. So we got that y is 12, and we have a point 3 comma 12. And that will be in Q1 if you want to graph that one. And you can quickly graph it. So 312 would be, let's say here, something like that, right? Just quickly. So 3 on x and 12 on y, so it's really much taller than what it's wide. You might have a couple of these to compute, right? So they give you y equals 1/2 x minus 3, and then they give you a whole bunch of these values, x. So let's say give you -4, 0, 2, and 6. If you get something like that, then you would compute each one separately by plugging them in one by one. So y for -4 is going to be 1/2 -4 minus 3. So half of -4 is -2 minus 3 is -5. Y of 0 is 1/2 times 0 minus 3, which is 0 minus 3, which is -3. And you keep writing those in. Then we have y of 2, which would be 1/2 of 2 equals 1/2 of 2 minus 3 is 1 minus 3, that's -2. And finally, y of 6, right? When you plug in a 6, instead of x, half of 6 is 3 minus 3 is 0. So we can compute the points like this, and then you can plot all of these and get the graph if needed. So some problems might have some of the computation involved. Graph problems. So say you have 3x minus 2y equal to 6. So because this is, I'll put it here on the side, standard form, which is ax plus by equals c, use x and y intercept setup. So we quickly get our xy setup here, and when x is equal to 0, that kills x, and 6 divided by -2 is -3. And when y equals 0, it kills a y, so 6 divided by 3 is 2. When you divide both sides by 3, right? You divide both sides by 3, so to get x alone, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Cool. All we need to do now is to graph this, and we're done. So we're going to put x and y axis. So y should be -3, and x should be +2. And then we just draw the line through these points. It's very quick, very systematic. You just have to remember what to do, right? So these problems with graphing should take less than a minute each. You compute x and a y, and you plug them in on the, you plot those on the x and y axis, and you're done. Now, graphing can also have slope-intercept form. So let's say you have -3/5 x plus, 4, whatever. So this form is called slope-intercept. And for the slope-intercept form, we graph b on y-axis. So graph b on y-axis. That's number 1. And number 2, count the slope, which is rise over run. So there's nothing to compute here. You either know this or you don't. There's nothing to compute. You just count. So we take x and y axis again. +4, 1, 2, 3, +4 is where our y-intercept is. Then I need to go down 3 because rise is negative. Negative rise means you're going down. So down 3 and over 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So this point is 5, 1. I need to label all of them for full credit. There we go. Again, very quick. Graphing slope-intercept form should be the fastest, right? Because you have all you have to do is to count, nothing else. Just count. So now, reviewing horizontal and vertical lines. So what we have is vertical and horizontal lines now. Vertical lines have equation x equals a number, and horizontal lines have y equals a number. So those are the equations. So if I want to graph x equals to 6, we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where 6 is, and because it's a vertical line, we draw a vertical line, right? It goes up and down through 6, and that's it. There's nothing else to do regarding that. If you need to graph, let's say y equals -2, then we are going to do this. There we go. So this is our x and y, right? Coordinate system. And now we draw y equal -2 line going through -2. It's a horizontal line. This is what vertical and horizontal lines are. Now, some problems, I'm looking at at some of the problems in the book, and one of the problems, and I remember this problem actually making some issues on the final for a lot of students. The problem said, find and graph equations of vertical and horizontal lines actually through the point 3, -5. So this is one of the problems with horizontal and vertical lines that for some reason students couldn't figure out, and I don't get it. You know that x is 3 and y is -5, and you know that when you separate them they become equations for the lines. So you literally just draw, let's use red for this one and blue for this one, right? So all I need to do is to separate them and draw each one. I need more space. Okay, so this one needs to become longer. It's really picky. Okay, so here's my x-axis, here's my y-axis, and from this point I know that x is equal to 3, that's vertical, and y equals -5, that's horizontal. So red one for 3, 1, 2, 3 gets the vertical line, and horizontal for -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. The intersection point here is -3, -5, which is the point that is given to you. They intersect at 3, -5. So we have the blue equation, to be y equal -5, and the red equation to be x equals 3. So that's it. That's all on horizontal and vertical lines. Now we have a whole bunch of other problems. Another big one that is definitely going to be in some form on the test in 2 days is going to be the slope of the line. Compute the slope of the line. Compute the slope of the line. Oops, link. Line given points. Let's say you have 3, -6, and 9, and now 4, whatever. Formula that you must memorize, otherwise you are doomed, is m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's the formula that you must know. And you can label the points any way you want. Either one of them can be point 1, the other one has to be then point number 2. So we are going to have, in this case here, m equals 4 minus -6 divided by 9 minus 3. So I kept this as a point 2. So this is a y2 then, and then y2 minus y1. So 4 minus -6. So that's a 10, because minus and minus is a plus, divided by 6, which simplifies down to 5/3. So slope is 5/3. When we reduce down the right. So cancel by 2, because both numbers are even, and you will get this. I'm going to read some of the problems from the book so that we can, from the review section. It says, if the formula looks weird, you need to switch it and fix it so it looks okay. So we can say, it says graph y equals 2 minus 2/3 x. Well, we know that this is supposed to be the first. Right? It's mx plus b. This is supposed to be at the end. So it's your job to rewrite it as -2/3 x plus 2. See, this minus sign belongs to 2/3. And we know that if we have a minus for the fraction, we always keep it in the numerator, right? We talked about it many times in class. Always keep negative sign in the numerator, which is the upper part of the fraction. Always keep it there, because you can do rise over run. Rise can go up or down depending on if there is a minus or not. And the run, because it will always be positive, run should always go to the right. So we again draw the system, the coordinate system, and put x and the y, positive 2, then we go 2 units down and 3 units over. So they go through 2 and 3 on axes. And that's the graph. So if you have any equations, right? If you have any equations that do not fall under the, right, what you see in class, just make sure you switch them around. So in this case, we swapped this, right? We put that first and then put 2 plus 2 second to have that plus b, right? Plus 2. Another problem that usually makes issues for students is the one when you are given 2 points and you are supposed to find the equation of the line. So find the equation of the line given, let's say, -3, 4, and 1 and 6. It really doesn't matter what you pick. Any 2 points will always give you equation of the line, because when you put 2 points in space, you can just draw a straight line between them. So we are looking for y equal mx plus b. And in order to get there, we clearly need m and we need b. Right? So those are the 2 questions that we have to figure out. Now m should be really no-brainer, because you have 2 points and you memorized the formula. You have 6 minus 4 divided by 1 minus -3. 6 minus 4 is 2. 1 plus 3 is 4, because negative and negative make a positive. And we get 1/2. So slope is 1/2. So that was easy to understand. Now, y equal mx plus b. Pick any of the 2 points. Let's pick 1, 6. You have your x, you have your y, and you know that your m is 1/2. Plug in. So y is 6, m is 1/2, x is 1 plus b. 1/2 times 1 is 1/2 plus b. Now we can use the trick of multiplying everywhere by 2 to cancel the fraction. So times 2 times 2 times 2. And that's going to be 12 plus 1. 12 equals 1 plus 2b. So no more fractions, right? That was our way to remove fractions. And now, take away 1 on both sides. We have 11 equals 2b. And we finally divide both sides by 2. b equals 11 over 2. So, y equals 1/2 x plus 11 over 2 is the answer. We were able to find m, and we were able to have The question is, why do we divide by 2? Well, we divide by 2 because we have 2b, right? I have a 2b, and I need b alone. So in order to get b alone, I divide both sides by 2 to get b alone. That's why I divided both sides by 2. And then we plug in b, which is now 11 over 2. We plug that in. And here's your m, and here's your b. So your job is to find m and b. Sometimes one of them or both of them are given, and sometimes neither, right? So you have to calculate both of them. So please rewatch this procedure to understand why there is a part where you calculate m, there is a part when you calculate b, and then you just put them together. Now, obviously, if m is already given to you, you don't have to compute it. You just use m and the point, which is just this part here, right? You use m and you use a point to quickly calculate b, and then you can plug, right? So that's if m is given. But if 2 points are given, you can still deal with it by plugging these values in. The next concept is the concept of parallel and perpendicular lines. So that's the next part which we need to talk about. Parallel and perpendicular lines. So 2 lines are parallel, meaning separation between them is the same if the slopes of the 2 lines are the same. So 2 lines are parallel, right? 2 lines are parallel if their slopes are the same. Now, perpendicular lines have a 90 degrees angle between them. In class, we talked about, corner of the door, corner of the board, corner of your inside of your screen, right? That's all at 90 degrees. So when 2 lines meet in such a fashion, right, like the wall and the ceiling and so on, we call that perpendicular, and we say they're at 90 degrees. So for perpendicular, the slopes are negative reciprocals. That means you have slope 1 to be 1/2, then the slope 2 is -2. Because you have to flip the fraction and you have to change the sign. So if I had a 1 over 2, it becomes 2 over 1, right? And 2 over 1 is just 2. And then we have to change the sign because it was positive, now it becomes negative. Or let's say m1 is equal to -6. Now -6, whatever. So m2, well, first we write 6 over 1, right? So when you flip that, you get 1 over 6, and because it was negative, now it's going to be positive. So if you start with a negative, you will end up with a positive. If you start with a positive, you will end up with a negative. And you always have to flip the fraction. Even if it's a whole number, you can write it as the number over 1, and then you flip it. So one of the problems, let's see. Find the equation of the line passing through three zero and perpendicular to y equals -3/2 x. That's the problem. We were supposed to figure out the equation of the line that passes through the point 3 0 and it's perpendicular. So the first order of business for us is to figure out the slope, right? So your m1 is -3/2. That means that the slope you need has to be flipped and change the sign. So that means +2/3. And then all we need to do is to use the slope and the point in the formula and we're done. So y equal mx plus b, y is 0, m is 2/3, x is 3 plus b. 3 is cancelled, so 0 equals 2 plus b, take away 2 on both sides, b equals -2. So what's the equation? Y equals 2/3 x minus 2. So these problems can ask you to compute the slope from 2 points. They can also ask you to compute the slope by looking at the parallel or perpendicular line using the math rules you learned this time around, this class. Let's take a look at some of the chapter 4 problems. I would encourage you to watch the other video as well, the one that I made yesterday. So please try and look at that as well. All right, in chapter 4, we really have only a couple of these problems to figure out. Graphic solutions and algebraic solution, which is substitution method, right? So those are the two that we care about in chapter 4. So system has two equations, ax plus by equals c and dx plus ey equals f. Right, so there are two equations that are coupled together because they share the same x and a y. And we have two different methods, right? Graphical method in 4.1 and substitution method in 4.2. So let's explore graphical solution. Let's say you have two equations, x minus 2y equals -5 and 2x plus, these are going to end up being, hold on, we're going to use a different problem because they're going to end up being fractions on zeros. So how about x plus y equals 3 and x minus y equals 1. So to solve the system, we graph. To solve the system of two equations, we can graph both and look for intersection. Right, so intersection, and if you get an intersecting point, right, that means it's a solution. If you're unable to figure out the point, right, then it could also be infinitely many solutions, or it could be no solution at all. So let's take a look at, this particular problem here. So for graphing, we have to be very, very precise. Now, luckily on MyMATLAB you will have the tool for that, so you just use that tool and you should be okay. So we go with the X and Y axis, and I need to do those charts, right? So for this one, because it's given in a standard form, when X is 0, Y is 3, and when Y is 0 in the next row, then X is 3. Oh, okay. Right, this is X is 3, Y is 3. So I have this type of the line. Say a 45-degree line, it's half of 90. So that's line 1. Line 2 is given by X minus Y equals 1. So since it's given in a standard form, we do the chart again. So you will have to do, well, you have to, you don't have to, but you might want to because it's so cheap. You can quickly solve many of these, but just by computing zeros, right? So when X is 0, we have Y to be -1. When you divide both sides by -1 to get Y alone, you get -1 for Y. And for X value, when Y is equal to 0, right, that goes away, and you just have X minus 0 is 1, so X is 1. So I have a Y equal -1, and X equals +1, and then we draw the line. So there's the intersection, 2 in X and 1 in Y. Now let's say you don't trust it, right? You want to check. So to check, you will plug in your answer into both equations. So X plus Y equals to 3, 2 plus 1 equals to 3, 3 equals to 3. We're good with the solution. Let's check the other equation. So that's X minus Y equals 1. That's 2 minus 1 equals 1, 1 equals 1, good to go. So both of our equations worked as we checked, which means, right, problem is good, and we move on. So for graphing, we need to know both forms, because the problems can be given either as slope-intercept form, which is where you count the slope, or they can be given to you as, what do you call it, the standard form, when you do the charts. Let's take a look at another graphing problem. What should we do? Well, this one is interesting because it looks different. So here's your system, and you're supposed to graph these two. So what is the top equation? Can someone type in chat, what's the top equation? Equation for what? X equals 1. What is it? Uh-oh. It's a vertical line, right? So we go at 1. Let's use 2 units for 1. And we draw vertical line. So I was only asking what type of a line is it, because we are on a graphing method. We are not computing anything. And if you are doing the plug-in method, you will not be writing y, because you are replacing y with we'll deal with that next step. So it's a vertical line, line 1, and the line 2 is using xy intercepts, because it is using xy intercepts because it's a standard form. So when x is equal to 0, we have negative y equals negative 1, and divide both sides by negative 1, we get y to be 1. And when y is equal to 0, then the y goes away and x is negative 1. So x negative 1 is here, y positive 1 is here, and then we draw the line. And that's our line 2. What is this intersection? Well, if this is 1 and this is 2 and that's a 1, then the intersection is 1, 2. So graphical method is asking you to graph the two lines. If they happen to be parallel, there is no solution because they will never intersect. If the lines intersect, then there is one solution, which is the point of intersection, and you have to write it as x, y. And the third case is when the lines graph on top of each other. Now, if that happens, if lines graph on top of each other, we are going to have the infinitely many solutions. Infinitely many solutions because the lines are on top of each other, and every point, which is infinitely many, right? Every point of one line matches a point of the other forever. So that's why we say infinitely many solution. The next part is to take a look at the substitution method. So this problem can also be solved with the substitution method. Now, in this case, it's way too easy because x is given as 1. So we just plug that in. And we get 1 minus y equals negative 1. We subtract 1 on both sides. We get negative y equals negative 2. And then we divide by negative 1 on both sides, get y is 2. We already know x is 1. So 1, 2, which is the same solution we had up there with graphing. I mean, you have to get the same answer. It's just a different method to do the same problem. Now let's take a look at a spicier case. So let's see what we can find. How about x plus 3y equals 1? And 2x minus minus 2x plus 2y is equal to 6. Now our job is to locate where we have a coefficient of 1 or negative 1. I call them in class single, right? Because you are not going to get fractions if you find the one without a coefficient. So from the top equation, we are going to solve for x, which is 1 minus 3y. You subtract 3y to both sides to get rid of it. 3y is on the same side as x. We just need to move it, so we get x alone, because the whole thing represents x, and we plug that into the next equation. So we have negative 2 times 1 minus 3y plus 2y equal to 6. And when you look at this equation, we now only have y's, no more x's. And that's why we can solve this equation, because it only has one variable. So distribute negative 2. We get negative 2 plus 6y plus 2y equal to 6. 6 plus 2 is 8, so negative 2 plus 8y is equal to 6. We add 2 to both sides because we are solving now for y. These guys cancel, and I get 8y equals 8. Oh, how convenient. Divide both sides by 8. Y is 1. And now, all we need to do is to compute x. X was 1 minus 3y. And you need to plug in to calculate x. So x equals 1 minus 3 times 1, which is 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. So we have a ordered pair, negative 2, 1. You have to list x first and then y. I don't care in which order you calculated those. That has nothing to do with our solution. Solution always must be represented as x comma y. So our x is negative 2, negative 2 goes first. If this is looking like I'm flying through things, please realize that I know that this is all on YouTube, and you can rewatch it as many times as you want. There is no reason for me to recap, what happened, and then when I erase the board, it's done. This will stay. The video will stay. The PDF file will be uploaded. So there is no reason for me to go over the same problem 10 times. If you didn't get the problem, rewatch the video a couple of times and you will eventually get the problem. So the resource is there for you on my channel. So just go and click on it, open it, right, and learn. So the only thing that is left for us to discuss are the word problems, right? Now, I did do a word problem last time on room prices and a whole bunch of stuff. Let's talk about renting a car. So now these are word problems. And as I said before, please make sure you're making these problems personal, because you will care more, right? That's one of the good tricks on how to get through this. renting a car is relevant because eventually you'll have to have your car in the shop. Why do I say that? Because you live in New Jersey, and if you haven't so far, you will hit the deer. So, well, you say deer hit you, obviously, but but you will have to rent a car, right? So let's take a look at car rentals. So a rental car costs $40 plus 20 cents per mile. Rental car costs $40 plus 20 cents per mile. So when you go to the place, they say we will be charging you $40. I don't know, $40 per day, per week, per month, I don't know, whatever. But then for every extra mile, rental cost, so that you pay 40, that's a fixed fee. And then there will be 20 cents per mile. See that 20 cents per mile? This thing over here is the rate, which is a fraction. So let's try and figure out how we can deal with this. If I write 20 cents per mile, I can put 0.20, right, in terms of dollars. So 0.20 per 1 mile. So divided by 1. Well, that's just 0.20, right? If they said 20 in 10 miles, you would say, well, okay, 0.20 divided by 10. But no, they just say 1. So divided by 1, so it looks like it's just 0.2, but it's actually a combination of the two. So what's the equation? The cost equation is equal to 0.20x plus 40. Why is this an equation? Well, here is your rate and then amount of miles. So it's not the same for the rental cost if I rent a car and go to ShopRite 3 times, right? Grocery shopping 3 times, or I rent a car and go to DC and back. It's a huge difference in mileage, and cars deteriorate the more you drive it. So insurance, right, is, the gas cost, not the cost, the gas use, right, is, we can do these problems with insurance as well. We can do it with the gas, we can do it with the prices. There are just so many different things that we can do with this, right? In this particular problem, you are renting a car, and it's 20 cents per mile. So clearly, the more you drive, the further away you go, the more you pay. But again, the car depreciates with more miles and so on. So that's why the more you drive, the more you pay, because the more you are damaging the car by driving it. So now you can say, all right, so how much is going to be my, trip to 300-mile trip? So cost for 300 miles trip. Well, all you need to do is to plug in 300 for x, because this is how much you pay per mile. So if you have 300 miles, then 300 goes in there. So the cost is equal to 0.20 times 300 plus 40. So what do we have? We have actually 0.2 times 300 plus 40. When you multiply these two numbers, you get 60 plus 40. So the cost is equal to $100. So it will cost you $100 to go 300 miles. Very good. Yes, 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 yes. Nice. So we have $100 cost to go 300 miles with this rental. It's linear lines, right? Linear equations, and we can compute. Now you can use it to compute how much money you're going to pay if you just go 6 miles, right? So that's gonna 6 miles. That's gonna add what? About $1. Okay, let's take a look at one more word problem. Again, I encourage you to watch the other videos for more word problems. All right, let's take a look at Oh, perfect. Bank loans. So we have two accounts, two loans actually. So loan 1 and loan 2. So that's the money. This is the total. Again, if you don't like the chart, don't worry about it. Just solve the problem if you know the other way. Chart is really good to organize information. All right, so individual has 2 loans totaling $2,400. So Nick, that's me, has 2 loans totaling $2,400. So one loan charges 5% interest, simple interest. And the other one charges 6% interest. So if the interest total $132, how much was each loan? Well, this is relevant stuff because we live and we take loans, a car loan and mortgage and school loan and a whole bunch of loans all the time. Technically, every time you swipe a card, it's a loan because credit cards are bank's money, not yours. You are borrowing it and then you're paying it back in the end, right? All right, so what do we have? We have 2 loans totaling $2,400. So total for 2 loans is $2,400. One charges 5%, that's 0.05. You have to write percent as a decimal. Right, so this is our interest here. and interest rate, so R. And this is our principal, P, and our interest, I. Time is 1 year, so we don't need T. It's just times 1. So one loan charges 0.05, the other one is 0.06, right, for 6%. And the total amount of interest collected is 132. So that's what we have, right? This is what we have, and we just go and now fill in the rest of the chart, and we're done. So we're going to go and calculate now. Well, first off, let's assign variables. We don't know how much we invested in the first one. We don't know how much we invested in the second one, right? So we don't know those two. So that's why we put X and a Y for those. And now you know that principal times rate times time equals interest. So we are multiplying these two and equal the last one. So that's 0.05 X and 0.06 Y. Oops, those are supposed to be red because that's what we are filling in. 0.05 X and 0.06 Y. There we go. Perfect. Where are my equations? My equations are in these columns. You add the money, so X plus Y is 2400. And 0.05 X plus 0.06 Y is 132. So cool, that's it. Just solve it now. We can solve on the top that Y is equal to 2400 minus X, and we use the substitution to plug in on the bottom one. Oh, actually, hold on. For the bottom one, let's just multiply by 100 everywhere to kill the decimals. So we have 5X plus 6Y equals 13,200. So all I did is I multiplied by 100, so I get rid of these, right? And now let's go and plug in. So the purple goes where Y is, and we have 5X plus 6 times, and instead of this we have 2400 minus X, there we go, equals to 13,200. Distribute the 6. So now we have 2400 times 6, right? So that's 120, 144, right? That's a 12 and that's a 24. Yep. Minus 6x equals to 13,200. Combine like terms to get minus x plus 14. There we go. Equals 13,200. Subtract 14,400 on both sides. And we get negative x equals negative 1,200. Divide both sides by negative 1. And we get that x equals 1,200. Now, since all together we have 240, so that means that y is 2400 minus 1200 gets also right? So the answer, remember, sentence answer for everyone, or every one of the word problems. Always sentence answer for each one of those. So what do I have as answer? Both loans are $1,200. I mean, each, right? So loans that I took are $1,200 each. Now, they don't always obviously work out to be the same number. If you go back, watch some, other videos that I did. So I probably did about 10 different word problems across the three videos so far. So you will see that this is the first time we're getting the same numbers for both values. So it's rare, right? It happens. So in this case, it happened, but it's not a rule. So don't bank on that. If you have any questions in chat, now is the time. Because I ran out of problems. We went through all of the concepts. And if you don't have any questions, make sure you log on sometimes Thursday after noon. This is for my Tuesday, Thursday algebra class, right? Monday, Wednesday will be logging tomorrow on Wednesday afternoon. And Tuesday, Thursday class will be logging sometimes after noon on Thursday. And you guys do the test on my MATLAB and click whatever it says. If you don't click anything, once the time is up, it will automatically send it. But you can also say submit. I believe it's called submit button or something. So you can submit if you finish early. Just hit submit. I'm going to continue teaching, and yes, I will now start teaching every day. We need to catch up, guys. We only have 6 weeks left, so we have a lot of catching up to do. So make sure you are keeping current with the lectures that are online on the channel, right? So look for elementary algebra title. I will fix this one as soon as I can. And we already finished 5.1 on exponents. The video is there. Just sit there and learn it. The next algebra lecture will be 5.2, and then we have 5.3, and we'll follow the syllabus, right? So we'll just go one at a time. We just have to, catch up. So please make sure that you are keeping up. There will be a new lecture pretty much, Monday through Thursday. I have streams every day. The videos will stay in the channel, so you can watch them. You can either watch them live or you can watch them later. Just please make sure that you are following. And the goal is to, because we still have exam 3, we have exam 4, and then we have the final. It's just a lot of stuff. All right. I will see you all later. Bye.